and welcome to the Icehouse podcast. I'm Bryar Stewart, the Community Manager at the Icehouse, and today we have Warren Thurlow on the podcast. His business was Kerb and Concrete. He was part of our Owner-Manager Program 47 and is based here in Tauranga. So an in-person conversation, which definitely my favourites. I've been looking forward to this conversation all week because this conversation is going to be a little bit different for all the best reasons. Warren has recently exited his business and we're sitting down today to discuss that journey, what it's looked like over the years, what got to that point, and excitingly what the future looks like for you, Warren. So welcome, Warren, to the podcast.
Thanks, Bryar. Good to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'd like to start with this question, which is quite a big open question, so take to it how you want to. But tell me about yourself. Who is Warren?
Yeah, it is a big question, but the long and short, I guess, I'm a father of two, a proud husband and dad. I was a business owner, but no longer. Like I said, I've got two wonderful boys, and been living in New Zealand about 6 years now. Before that, Australia, and before that, Zimbabwe. So I count myself lucky and consider myself to have three homes. I'm a Zimbo Aussie Kiwi.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I've had a bit of a journey through life up to now, but love living here in the Bay of Plenty now, and I couldn't think of a more beautiful place to live, and I've got many interests, one of which was business. I do like my sport as well, and I'm a keen triathlete, something that I actually picked up through the process of the Owner-Manager Program.
Oh, wow.
And we can talk a bit about that later. But that's me in a nutshell.
Cool.
And good to be here.
Yeah, so good to have you here. I thought I could sense a South African accent, just underline, just an undercurrent.
Yeah, just a little. I try to blend in as well.
No, that's cool. I love that as well, that you said you got three homes, which is a good way to put it. Yeah.
I do have three homes, and I miss Africa quite a lot, but this part of the world down under is definitely second best to where I come from. So amazing part of the world to live, and very lucky to be here.
That's so cool. I love that, and cool to hear about your family and your interests. I think that's really going to set the scene for this conversation. But would love to hear what that career journey has looked like over the years, and what life looks like right now.
Okay, so I guess we'll start from my education. I studied civil engineering and project management in Australia, and set out on my career journey while I was still at uni, working for some construction companies in Australia. So I worked as a site engineer to start off with, on some pretty cool infrastructure projects. Built a couple of wind farms, which was pretty neat.
Cool.
Yeah. They were still to this day some of my favourite projects that I've worked on. Went along that journey, progressed through the ranks, I guess, and moved a couple of companies. Went from site engineer to project engineer, and eventually landed as a project manager, working in Melbourne, which is where I met my wife. Well, I actually met her on a dive boat, but she was living in Melbourne at the time, and so I actually moved there.
Oh, wow.
That was a good career move as well, because I ended up being a project manager on a $1 billion master plan development in the western part of Melbourne.
Wow.
And that's where my business journey started, I guess. The owner of the company I was working for kind of took me under his wing a little bit and sort of mentored me a bit, and it was at a time when I had been thinking for a while that I had wanted to get into business for myself. I'd always had that sort of entrepreneurial gene, I guess, and in me, interest in me. From my days back on our farm in Africa, I actually was constantly coming up with money-making schemes, one of which was importing sugar from Mozambique.
Wow, that's advanced.
There was a sugar shortage
Awesome.
in Zimbabwe, and we grew, some of the crops we grew on our farm were like cabbages and stuff, like market garden sort of stuff.
Cool, yeah.
As well as some of our other row cropping, and we used to take some of the market garden stuff to a farmer's market in Mozambique, and so I would go up with one of our drivers up there and then come back with sacks full of sugar and sell it. So that's where my business sort of journey started.
I love hearing those like those childhood stories of like, well, it started here at, selling on the side of the road or something like that. I think that's really cool, yeah.
So I've always had an interest in business. And so, when I was working in Melbourne as a project manager, we had some family over here in the Bay of Plenty, and my wife is a Kiwi, and so we would travel over quite a bit, and through my cousin I met who was then my business partner, a guy who had a construction business here in the Bay of Plenty and was sort of looking for someone to be his succession plan. He was heading towards retirement, didn't know what he wanted to do with his business. And I thought, here's my opportunity to get into a business for myself and in an industry that I was really comfortable in construction. So I approached him. When I approached him, my wife and I were actually traveling around South America, and we were due to come back to New Zealand for a wedding. So I approached him while we were away traveling and said, look, we're coming back to New Zealand for a wedding. Can I come and meet you? So I went and met him, and one thing led to another. We struck a deal, and I was to come and get involved in the business and buy into the business. So it took another 2 or 3 years of bit of negotiation and working through exiting what I was doing in Melbourne.
Yeah, of course.
But eventually in 2016 we left Melbourne and came to the sunny Bay of Plenty. Awesome decision. And I got involved with Kerb and Concrete and bought into the business. There were originally 2 partners. One was closer to retirement than the other, and I bought that partner out and became 50-50 in the business, and the journey went from there. I put all my energy into the business and wanted to grow it and had grand ambitions for it, and it flourished. I think I put in place some new systems along the way and brought some of my sort of bigger picture thinking to the business, and added what I think were some decent additions to I guess the strategic direction. Loved it, the whole process right through. Ended up doing the owner manager program, OMP 46, and that was amazing. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, later on. Made some pretty cool changes in the business as a result of that, and went from there. The business had some excellent years, was really strong, but unfortunately towards the middle of last year I started to see some signs that maybe I needed to exit the business, one of which was I was starting to have some mental health issues. We can talk about that in greater depth later, but I eventually made the hard decision to exit the business for both myself and my family.
Wow.
And it was a really hard decision, but I believe it was the right one, and now I'm currently having a break, doing a lot of triathlon training.
Awesome.
It's good to spend more time on my bike and out running and in the pool, and spend a lot more time with my kids.
Amazing.
James is due to start school soon in the next few months, so it's been really good to have more time with him before that, and now I'm just exploring what I want to do next. Whether I just want to work for someone or explore some other business opportunities for myself.
Wow.
That's where I'm at now.
Wow, what a journey, what a story. Thank you for being real and just honest about, the journey that led to that decision, and
that's a pleasure.
And some of the whys behind it. And I know we are going to dive deeper into it, but just want to, mention to anyone listening that this is a great example of a story that just needs to be shared, of like, it doesn't always turn out how we sort of assume it will turn out, that sometimes there's, different directions that we take, and maybe not the intention from day one, but actually the best decision when you get to that point, it is the best decision. And I think people can assume that exiting the business is a failure or a loss, and I'm sure you've had to deal with that, probably mainly the internal feeling of going around in your head.
It's hard to reconcile that, but once you do, it's you get a sort of inner peace from that, I suppose.
An inner peace for sure. And I think it's just so important to communicate through this story that it's not a failure, that actually when I saw your email come through and you told me that you'd made that call to exit your business, I thought, what an awesome success, and what a great decision that you've made for your family and for the people around you and for yourself. So just want to say thanks for that, and good on you. That's awesome. But we will dive into your experience in the Icehouse, yes, but also what led to that decision. But I'd love to know, what was sort of one thing that you wish you had known when you began your career and your business? I'm sure you're in a place now where you can go, hindsight's a beautiful thing.
Hindsight is a beautiful thing. Like, I wish I had better understood my intrinsic nature, the way I am, and put in place some better structure to deal with it. Like, because I am who I am, and a lot of what led to the situation was my intrinsic nature, or my intrinsic natures, my intrinsic qualities, I suppose. And qualities can be detrimental at times. That's
a good one.
I wish I had known I wish I'd better understood, I guess, myself. When I started out, and if I had, I might have structured things slightly differently to account for that, I suppose.
That's such a good one. Actually, just knowing, okay, well, this is just who I am, and this is why I'm making these decisions, or why I'm thinking like this, and that's awesome.
When I say I wish I'd known who I don't actually think anyone can know 100% who they are. Like, it's a journey you go throughout your life to discover who you actually are deep down. You think you know yourself, but until you're put in a bunch of different situations, you don't know how you'll react or how you'll handle those things. So
so true.
It's a discovery, I guess.
It's a journey, it's discovery. I like that. That's awesome. Cool. That's a great answer. Any more thoughts on that?
No, I think I wish I'd known who I was better, or understood who I was better.
That's a great one. I haven't heard that before, and I think why I haven't is one of the first conversations we've had that you can talk from the lens that you're talking from. From not being in the business. I think, working on and in the business is one thing, but actually exiting the business and being on the other side of that brings this whole nother layer of perspective.
Absolutely it does. Like, it's a perspective and I'm only coming to these realizations now after I stepped out of the business. I was still looking at it from that in the business lens. And it's only now upon reflection that you start to realise, I was blind to a lot of things.
Had blind spots.
Had blind spots, absolutely.
So interesting. Wow, that's great. Following from that, what has been one of your biggest challenges, and what did you learn from that experience?
One of the biggest challenges within my business was probably dealing with my ambition. And how dealing with my ambitions, and also how that coupled with the ambitions or the lack of ambitions of a business partner. So that interaction and that relationship between business partners is a very delicate one. And that for me has probably been one of the biggest challenges I've had to face. Sometimes ambition can make you impatient, and so when things aren't moving as quickly as you would like, or you sort of feel like you're hitting a brick wall, it can create a lot of frustration, and sometimes that can strain a partnership, a business partnership. So I would say that's probably been one of my biggest challenges. Myself and my business partner are very different people, and had very different outlooks on life, and we're also at very different stages of our life. Him being older, heading towards retirement, me still young and ambitious, and driving to grow, I guess. To me, that was one of the biggest challenges. And we worked really well together. We had a good working relationship, but at times that did create some conflict, I guess, the polar opposites that we were at in terms of our journey. So it was a delicate, it was like a tightrope, walking a tightrope a lot of the time. And I'm a kind of person to speak my mind, and unfortunately my business partner didn't take too well to bluntness. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It actually ties so well back into what you were saying around knowing yourself, right? And knowing that, okay, I know myself, and I realise that in this case my business partner is very different to who that is.
And I wish I had, upon reflection, I mean, I don't regret anything that I've ever done, or the decisions I've ever made, but I probably, if I'd recognised myself better and understood better my business partner, I might have approached things from a different perspective or a different tack, and maybe been a bit more patient. And I don't think that necessarily would have changed the outcome in the end, but it might have made the process. At times running a business can be not enjoyable, but it might have made it more enjoyable along the way. I enjoyed a lot of it, and loved it, but at times you can lose touch with that enjoyment for the process. If I had been a bit more patient at times, I might have smelled the roses a bit more.
Totally. Celebrated the wins.
Totally. My intrinsic ambition and drive, it can sometimes stop you from celebrating the little wins, because you move past them too quickly and onto the next thing. And that all ties back into wishing I'd actually known myself better and just enjoyed the journey a little bit more.
But it's amazing because, like I've just said, a conversation with this layer of deepness is because you've had the time on the other side to really just sit with your thoughts and think about the last, how many years was it in the business?
I'd been in there 6 years or so. Really
thinking about that time.
Reflecting on 6 years. I mean, it's not a very long time, but it is enough time to have some real deep, build some deep relationships and have enough things happen and go through some cycles.
Totally.
That you're reflecting on that, especially through this lens, it gives you a different perspective, and you probably draw some conclusions you wouldn't draw from the inside.
Has it been a hard process sitting in your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. It is one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Wow.
Sitting in your thoughts, but it's been one of the most rewarding things, I guess. I feel like I've found who I am. It makes me a bit emotional thinking about it. I feel like and just having this, going through this process and looking at it through this lens and just time to think, is I've had so many different realizations, not just who I am within the business and career sense, but like who I am within my personal relationships with my wife and my kids. Just realizing how I could be a better dad at times, and how I could better interact with my children. I think when I was in the business, I didn't have the time to think about it in that sense. I was constantly, and we'll talk about that as part of my personality. I was constantly driven, and I'm quite an obsessive person when it comes to things. I throw myself 100% into things and become obsessive, and that's not conducive to healthy relationships. Because it lacks balance. So only now that I've stepped out of it, I have these realizations. Like I would get home and that sort of witching hour for children between getting them fed when they've had a long day and bath, stories, bed, that routine can be very frustrating. And it's all parents will understand this. It's a difficult time, and it used to frustrate me, and I'd be like, why? I don't understand why my boys won't listen in this situation. Why are they doing that? And it was only yesterday that I had this light bulb moment. We'd done because I've been at home, and so I've been the sort of stay-at-home dad, and I'd had a whole full day with them. And we'd done all the normal things we'd do on that sort of day, like we went to the park and had a play, and came back and had some lunch, and they had some quiet time. We went back to the playground, kicked the ball around, and I came back and I was making dinner, and while dinner was cooking, I sat down and did an activity with them, and I didn't think about anything else. I didn't look at my phone, I didn't worry about the dinner, I just literally properly played with them.
Wow.
For half an hour, like properly played, and just
Fully
was engaged in it.
Yeah.
And I could see that my boys were really feeding off that and really enjoyed it. And then, well, surprise, surprise, there were absolute angels between.
Yeah, wow.
And a Monday is usually a hard day because my wife will finish work and go to Pilates, so it's just me putting the boys to bed.
Yeah.
And going through that process. And I was like, wow, they were awesome. Why was that? And then I just twigged. I'm like, you just engaged with them for just half an hour. You properly 100% engaged with them. And so I don't think I would have realised that if I'd still been in my business, because I was just constantly thinking about my business.
Yeah, totally.
And just, it didn't leave me time. And it is a fault. But I'm glad I've realised that, and I'm glad that I made the decision that I did, because I've been able to realise that.
And amazing you've realised it now at the ages, because you'll be looking at, I know from the lens of I've lost so much time. But really you've gained so much time.
Absolutely.
Because of the other side of that, is it your eldest that's about to go to school? And so you've gained all those all the years to come with that perspective that if I engage with my kids, I will have those outcomes. Yeah, wow.
And it seems like such an obvious thing. I feel like quite silly that I only just realised this properly now. I thought I was engaging with my kids. I would do things with them and like play with them and stuff, but I realise now I was like on autopilot, if that makes sense. I was going through the motions, playing with them and doing things, but my mind wasn't 100%. I was not in the moment, or I wasn't being mindful, I guess, in doing those activities with them. And I thought, I'm doing these things I'm doing stuff with my kids, but wasn't really doing it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
interesting.
That's massive. It really is, and that's why I love this just deeper conversation, because these conversations about business, business owners, business leaders, exiting businesses is one thing, but to touch on the family element, to touch on how important it is, and right back at when I asked who is Warren, you mentioned your family. You mentioned, that you're a father. You mentioned those elements, which is so important, but sometimes in this context, when we're talking about business, we forget to mention family and things that are such major parts of our lives.
Absolutely.
But they aren't always put in the priority order that they should be, right?
Yeah, correct. I mean, like, one of the things that we touch on in the OMP program is the three circles of like you in the business and the business.
Yeah.
And it's very easy as driven type A personalities that a lot of business owners are to get stuck in the business circle and the you in the business circle and forget that like who you are and who you are as yourself and your interests, and also your family and your relationships. And I definitely had forgotten that circle, and when I was making the decision to exit the business, that those three circles came into mind, and the more it was really hard to make the decision to exit. But I was looking at some of my notes, and I came back to that, and I was like, you've forgotten this part.
Wow.
And it's you're just at a complete imbalance, and that imbalance was creating a lot of mental anguish, I guess, if you want to call it. to be brutally honest, I was starting to have panic attacks. I was irritable and grumpy at home. I wasn't a nice person to be around, and I recognized that. And I'm glad that I recognized it when I did, because it was not too far along that I had done irreparable damage. I was at a point that I could do something about it and be a better person for that, and not lose my relationships with my wife and my kids and my parents and my brother and my friends.
Wow.
I realized that, like I said, that one of the challenges is not understanding. Well, one of the things I wish I'd known was knowing who I am, and I realize now that who I am is quite a driven person and someone who's obsessive about things. And when I do something, I throw myself 150% into that, with no thought for the other parts of my life.
Wow.
And that is not conducive to building good relationships. And the price you pay to be like that is your relationships. It's detrimental to your relationships. And to be honest, I had such a great family unit as a kid, and still now with my parents and my brother, and we're very close. And I want that for my own personal family unit. And the price you pay to be that obsessive about something isn't going to work, and I wasn't willing to pay that price. So ultimately, that was why I came to the decision. My mental health things were really hard to deal with, and they were causing problems in my personal life and in my family. And unless I worked on it and did something about it, who knows? There's no crystal ball to say what would have happened, but I could have lost my family, or lost myself.
Wow.
In
different ways.
So,
honestly, just you're getting me thinking too, and I think that's what this conversation is. It's for the business owner, but for the business leader, it's for the everyday person. How can we just take stock of what's going on in our lives and just prioritize it better.
Absolutely.
And keep others, focused, those people in our family and ourselves and our mental capacity and knowing when we've taken a step too far.
Absolutely. It's to be a truly amazing business leader, you have to have balance between all three: the business, yourself in the business, and you as a person in your relationships. And so when I realized, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and so I realized, you actually aren't being a world-class business leader because you haven't got balance in these three things. You've lost this part. So, you can be an amazing success story in business whilst being very imbalanced. There's a lot of very public examples of that.
Totally.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah, he came to mind first for me.
Steve Jobs was a brilliant man,
but
exceptionally obsessive, and his personal life paid the price. Warren Buffett, the world's best investor, is exceptionally talented, very obsessive, but he's had a struggle through his personal relationships throughout his life. If you read his books, he talks about it quite openly. There's plenty of examples of very successful people who unfortunately have paid the price. They may have been willing to pay that price, but for me, I wasn't.
It raises that question though, right? What does success look like? Because to people it looks different. But I also think in terms of society, we paint this picture of success, but and you get it through social media, you get it through everything, right? But is it the right painting of success? I'm not sure.
I think I'm not sure either. I think we might have it backwards at times. The Western picture of success is how much have you accumulated in your life, or how big is your business, how big is the turnover, how much profit, how much have you made, have you got the boat, batch and beamer, that's the picture of success that our society perpetuates. And some people, there's nothing wrong with striving for that, but I believe that there's more to success than that. I mean, some of the happiest people in the world are the poorest people in the world.
Totally.
I grew up in Africa amongst some of the poorest people on our planet.
Wow.
And some of the kids, some of the family units that you would see, like they've got to run 10 kilometers to get to the nearest school every morning and back, and they've got nothing. Like every day's a struggle to put the next meal on the table. Yet they're always smiling.
Yeah. Wow.
They're always laughing. Like I remember on our farm, like we sort of had a village on our farm, and a lot of those people worked on our farm. And if you ever walked through that village, the main thing that you heard was laughter, and the people were happy. And there's something to be said for that, I think. Like they didn't have what we deem as successful in the Western world, but they were happy.
Yeah.
So is that successful?
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know. It depends on what perspective you look at it.
It is. And amazing, like I always remind myself, and I don't know, for me, it's all about the people. It's all about what can I do to use my powers for good. That's my little byline in life. Yeah. But it's because when I think about it, and I think about life in a whole, when it's all over, we're not taking the the boat, and the, what did you say, the beamer, with us, you know. For us, you know, what is the legacy that we're leaving? And I think sometimes how society paints success doesn't, you know, really highlight that fact that it's not about that, you know.
Yeah, like you say, you can't take those things with you, and that part of it is forgotten very quickly, to be honest.
Yeah.
If you think about the like famous, amazing people that we like to idolize and talk about, but once they've gone, like it's often the ones who have done something exceptional in the like social space or whatever.
Totally agree.
Mandela, people like that.
Totally agree.
I mean, we do remember exceptional business people, but
in a different lens.
In a different lens, correct.
Yeah, totally. It's a great conversation we're having, seriously. Very inspiring, thank you. And wanting to ask the question, what were some highlights through the journey? I'm sure there were.
There was exceptional highlights. Like some of the relationships I built with the staff and the people within our business was amazing. And some of the relationships I built along the way, that I'll have for the rest of my life. That was definitely a highlight for me.
I love that the first highlight that you've said is the people. You know, it's interesting, that it's all about the people. And the relationships.
Absolutely, it is. Like, I mean, I still talk to one of the key guys within our business. Left early last year and moved for family reasons to Christchurch, and we bid him farewell. It was a big loss to the business, but he was doing it for the right reasons, and I still talk to him like at least once a month, and like I always regarded him as someone I could always go to. You know, he was, you know, I could always go to in the business to talk to someone and get a fresh perspective. Or if I just had a bad day and I needed to talk to someone about personal stuff, like I could always talk to him and trust him, and so those things I'll hold on to as I go forward. And then, I mean, there were some other successes that were awesome, like working on some really cool infrastructure projects that like shaped our community here in the Bay of Plenty. That was really like some of the highlights as well. I think our business, one of its goals, I guess, or its sort of purpose, I suppose, was to try and be involved in like community shaping projects and nation building projects. So infrastructure that's going to help the community and the country as a whole.
So great.
And so being able to do that, that was really cool. Like, unfortunately, like the day-to-days of running a business can be a grind. And I wish I had recognized those highlights along the way and sat and reflected in those moments, but more. It's only now afterwards that I think about it. Like during reflection, I start to think about, well, what did you enjoy? Like, what did you learn? And like, what were the best bits? And I think working on some really cool projects and be able to deliver for clients and stuff and some of them weren't even that big project, like smaller ones. Even some of it was like stuff we'd done as a donation, like we did some work for a school.
Cool.
Did some work around a small like ablution block, which is like a disability only accessible ablution block at the Mount. Like, was not a big job, but it just made you feel good.
Yeah.
Like you're doing something, and we're getting paid for it, but it just made you feel like you're doing something bigger than yourself.
Totally.
I suppose.
It's that legacy part.
The legacy part. So, and then also working on some of the biggest infrastructure in the Bay was it's cool.
Yeah.
Cool to work on. So those were some of my highlights.
Oh, incredible highlights. Amazing. So cool. Thank you so much for your vulnerability and for sharing the full picture. I think that's so awesome and loving this conversation.
Yeah.
But I'd love to know how you, along that journey, so you would have done the program at the Icehouse a few years ago now. How did you hear about the Icehouse and think this is a program for me?
So actually, the first time I heard about it, I went to a business seminar hosted by Nick McDonald, who's an alumni and likeable lad. Yep, likeable lad. And Carmen Vislich was one of the speakers at it, and
awesome.
she was talking about the journey of velocity and how that came to be, and then she spoke so highly of the Icehouse owner manager program and she was still, I think, pretty sure at the time she was still doing it.
Oh wow, cool.
But just like she's a very bubbly person, but she was just so bright and like excited about it. I was like, what is this thing? Like it almost seemed to me like it's like she's been brainwashed. This is like, I was like, it just got me intrigued. I was like, what is this Icehouse? What is this owner manager program? Like, geez, if that, and I'd been wanting to do some sort of like leadership development work on myself and my business, and I thought it would be a great thing for the business and me as a person. So I delved into it a bit and got to meet Maurice and talk more about it, and it was a bit of a journey from them to actually then eventually get on the thing. It took a bit of convincing my business partner that this was a good idea and something that would be beneficial for the business and myself going forward. And I was very lucky to get one of the Icehouse scholarships, so thanks to the business that put the money up for that.
Great.
I also managed to get some funding through the Chamber of Commerce over
Great.
here. So it was a journey to get to it, and so then getting into the program and starting it felt like it was a win, just like starting. And then I saw why everyone talks so highly of it. It's pretty amazing. So that's how I heard about it and got into it.
That is awesome. That is so cool. How would you sum up your experience on the program?
Just to be honest, like I don't think there's actually words to describe how good it was. For one, just meeting 24 or 25 other businesses and business owners like who are on this similar journey to you, or they might be on quite a different journey, but everyone had something to relate with each other, and just being able to connect once a month for a weekend or 3 days or whatever it was, and talk business with people who are on this similar journey and just have got the same enthusiasm as you for it. Like, I mean, there's only so much you can talk to your partner about business or like your friends until they start rolling their eyes.
So true.
And so just having that space where actually you felt comfortable and safe to just talk about it and really delve into the nuts and bolts of problems and then have other people that could relate to that was really refreshing. It's kind of like you'd found this like your community, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's exactly.
So that was amazing. Another part of it that was really truly amazing was having the access to some of the best business minds in the country. Yeah. And some of the speakers that came in were truly inspiring. And the facilitators as well, like everyone running the program was just so engaged and knew what they were talking about, and it was just really warm, welcoming, and like it's just a very cool program to be part of.
Awesome.
So the Icehouse truly is quite a exceptional organisation. I think like it's it's amazing what it's become.
Yeah.
And just that time with other participants in my program was really cool, and like we still keep in contact and catch up, and it was, and it also made you really be honest with yourself and your business, like how your business is going, and I mean, if it hadn't been for that, like I don't know if I would have recognized some of the red flags that I did recognize that led me to the decision of exiting my business. Some of the sessions with like Sven,
he's brilliant.
were like, I thought back to that and the resilience part and the 3 circles part quite a bit when I was making my decision. Just going through the program, actually, I'd always had an interest in endurance sort of sports stuff, but it was the thing that really like prompted me to get involved in triathlon, and like I truly, honestly can say I found like a passion of mine, like that I will go to the grave with. It's something that, and I'm realizing now that although it is a passion, I also do what I do, and I throw myself into things like head first. and I've just started to like, during this reflection, like, okay, you can still do well at this and do it in a more sustainable way and like more balanced way. I mean, maybe I would have got involved in triathlon without going through the program, but it was the thing that spurred me into it. It was actually the first session we did on resilience we talked about, and I think I'd started to recognize some of the mental health traps that I would fall into, and one of the things was like get a structured like exercise regime. And when I was thinking about what do I do for that, like, okay, well, what are your interests? I'm like, I like to run my bike. And I just happened to watch a documentary about this guy called the Iron Cowboy who did 50 Ironman triathlons in 50 days in 50 states.
Oh my gosh.
It's mental.
I actually have heard of this. Crazy.
Absolutely mental. But I was like, triathlon, that'd be cool. And I got involved and started doing it, and I love it.
Wow. That's so cool. Good place to live to get into triathlon.
Absolutely.
As well.
I've also realised that it is an exceptional place to live. Like, I mean, did a race just before, just after Christmas, and had Hayden Wild, like the elite race was just after the age group one, and you have like Hayden Wild and the likes like racing right in front of you.
So
He's
cool.
just won an Olympic medal, and here he is like, it's a pretty cool place to live and do that.
Awesome. Oh, cool. And so cool to hear that you absolutely loved the program and that you got so much out of it. And a thing I really noted when you were talking is that you actually went back to your notes in this time of needing to reflect and making this big call of exiting the business. Going back to those notes and going, okay, what's a red flag here? What I've learnt this, I know it's here. What can I pull out of it to help me make that next decision?
I actually did that quite a bit after the program. Like, would come up against something like, I'm sure we covered something that's related to this, or I could find someone within my new network that can help with this problem. And so I'd go back to my notes or send an email to some people that I had met through the program and just ask questions.
How great,
and one of the other positives that came out of the program was what we got which helped me actually deal with like some of the impasses I had with my business partner. Was we got an external advisor on board. So that was really positive. It was. I couldn't speak more highly of the program, to be honest.
That's amazing.
And it really is like a community that will. I don't think anyone speaks badly of it afterwards. I mean, there might be the odd person, but the vast majority think it's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And in my position, just wow, like always sitting here and listening to how people have been in different ways have pulled out the gold from the program and implemented into their business and their lifestyle. That's really made an impact. It's a cool organisation to be part of in that sense. It's just like wow, this is actually making a difference to people's lives, which is cool.
I think it is, and in a big way. It's really pleasure to do.
Yeah, great answer, and promise listeners that we didn't pay Warren to say that. It's awesome, it's so good. We've really covered in that though what changes you implement into your business and lifestyle, but any other thoughts that you had around that? Fine if not, but...
No, I think probably covered it through the conversation so far.
Exactly.
Sorry if I'm rambling on it.
No, it's absolute gold. It's absolute gold. From your learnings and your experience, what is a piece of advice that you'd give a business owner right now? It's a big question, especially from your perspective.
That is a very big question. I think the biggest piece of advice I could give a business owner is to really pay attention to finding balance.
Yeah.
Because imbalance is not healthy. It's not healthy for anyone, really. In all aspects of your life. But I think if you can find that balance within your business, within your teams within your business, within yourself in your business, with yourself and your business, finding balance, I think it's probably the number one thing you should do to have sustainable success as a business leader and owner. If you don't have that, you might find you get monetary success, or you have a successful business, but I pretty much guarantee you'll get to the end of your life with some regrets. Because without balance, you pay a price. And I mean, it depends on everyone's what they're willing to do and how they want to live their lives. But I think finding balance is probably, for me, the biggest part.
Oh, brilliant advice. So important. And I think right now, heading into our third calendar year of dealing with a pandemic and just the mental toll that's taken on business owners in a massive, massive way. It's so important that we put, that business owners and leaders put a stake in the ground and go, okay, I actually need to do something for myself here. A lot of business owners that we're, interacting with are always putting others before themselves. To an extent, yes, that's part of it, but there's such an important part of it where you put yourself first.
If you can't put yourself first, or you don't, you at some point you won't be able to help anyone else.
Yes. Wow.
So you have to be strong and healthy within yourself to be able to help other people. So if your thing is to help other people and put others first, you've kind of got to put yourself first to be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
I think. So.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
It's been a really, really tough time the last 3 years, or into our third calendar year, like you say, of a really just, it kind of feels like we're living in a twilight zone.
Yeah,
it's really weird, and it's really hard for humans to reconcile that, because we like direction, and this time for me, I feel like for everyone, the world sort of lacks direction. Like what is happening? Like we take a step forward, something else happens, and go backwards a bit, and it's really hard mentally to deal with that. I think probably that probably also fed into my own mental health issues through the process of business and like that uncertainty. But to be able to get through that and be strong for those sorts of situations, you do have to have a good framework, mental well-being framework, and good balance in your life. Because if you do have good balance in your life and you have good relationships, those are things you can lean on when the times get tough.
Yeah.
Because you can't do it all by yourself.
Yeah.
It's impossible. So if you do have good balance, and good balance leads to good relationships, then you've got a support network to lean on.
Yeah.
When it gets tough.
Yeah, totally. And touching on your point before, you can't give out to anyone if you haven't filled your well or your tank. I think it's important that people actually realise you've got to get some input before you output.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like that brings me back to that, like the bucket. If it's down here, if it's half empty, you can't get any more out of it. So you need to fill it up a bit.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so important. And goes really nicely into the next question. What is a practical way that business owners and leaders can improve or work on their mental health and well-being from your point of view?
I think if you've got I wrote some notes on this actually.
Yeah, awesome.
Because I think it's an important thing. Firstly, for me, what I found as a practical way was firstly just to talk to my wife. So talk to your spouse or your partner or your brother or sister or your best mate, whoever is that close person, or your mum or your dad, whoever's that closest person to you in your life. Talk to them about your mental well-being. Because unless everyone who's close to you is on the same wavelength, how do I put it? when you start on that journey, you're going to need people to push you along the way, because you can start and you won't continue it on. There'll be times where it's hard and you're like, I'll just go back to what I was doing. You need someone else who knows what's going on and knows what you're trying to do with your mental well-being, that will give you that little prod and like keep you honest. So I think it's talking about it firstly. Secondly is to exercise.
Awesome. Great.
I found that extremely valuable for me, like exercise and triathlon training has been my sanctuary through this thing. It's been really hard the last year and going through this process, exiting my business and my mental well-being. But whenever I went out and exercised, it was just a moment for myself, and I was doing it for me. And that might seem selfish, but I needed to do that. I recognized I needed to do that. I couldn't care, like we were saying, I couldn't care for someone else without. So, and it was a time when I found that exercise kind of forces you not to think about other things, especially if you're like doing something reasonably strenuous. You're thinking about, I'm tired, or you're thinking about your breathing or whatever. And so it helps you to be mindful and in the moment. And that is critical for mental well-being. So, and finding a passion outside of your business interests, and even outside of your business and your family sort of thing, like something that's a passion to you, and obviously don't take it too far. But find a passion. Finding a passion or a hobby or something is helpful, that you can do, even if it's just for half an hour a week. Like it's important. It makes you feel good. Other things I found like practically helpful is, and I tried to couple this with my exercise, was either breathing exercises or meditation. Some people think that's a bit sort of flowery thing, but I find meditation quite helpful. And meditation can be as simple as just like sitting for 3 minutes, focusing on your breathing.
So important.
So there's some practical things. I think like firstly talking about it with someone else, doing some regular exercise, and finding a passion.
Oh, so valuable. Like, because I love those questions, because anyone listening can go, cool, I could actually implement that tomorrow, or start the journey of implementing that. One thing I just quickly noted down was, when you communicate, you add in that extra layer of accountability. And I think that's so important with mental health, because the people close to you want the best for you.
Absolutely.
So if you've communicated that and they see you slipping, they can, communicate back to you and say, hey, you said this and you're now doing this, and it's that extra layer of accountability that may be hard to hear in times.
Absolutely. Like it can be hard to hear, and having that accountability is so important. Like I realized at times I would like just bottle it all up and not talk about it with my wife and stuff, but when I properly when I started properly talking about it with her, and like truly sharing my fears and stuff with her, and what I was going through in my head, she was able to be accountable, and she was blunt at times with me. Like I would be spiraling in like the self-defeating sort of mindset at times, and she would just tell me, shut up, you're being silly. And sometimes that's what you need to just snap you out of that spiral that you can get into. But then she would always do that in a loving way, and then give me some like practical things. Okay, right now what you need to do is go and do a breathing exercise. Like just simple things like that. And I'm exceptionally grateful for her for that. Like I feel like that brought us like a lot closer in our relationship. And like if I hadn't had my wife, like I don't know if I could have gone through this and had the same outcomes. So it's very important. I mean, I may have found someone else as an ally in that space, like my parents or my brother. But having said that, like it wasn't just my wife who helped me with those things; it was them as well. And I love them all for it.
That's amazing. I can just tell how genuine that is, and how that's so from the heart. And and you can talk about it now, but I can imagine some really hard, dark moments working that out together as a family and with those close to you.
Absolutely, there was definitely some dark moments, and to like I cried a lot. Like,
yeah.
It was hard, and what I realised, like, there's quite a like perception about like guys crying and stuff, and what I realised is it's like crying is like therapy. Don't ever be afraid to shed a tear. Like, it's my brother actually taught me that. He's a special soul.
That's awesome.
He was the best man in our wedding, and when he gave his speech, like, he cried most of the way through it, and I had blokes coming up to us afterwards going, man, that speech was the best speech I've ever heard, like, and because your brother cried, like, they were like, wow, we didn't realise that blokes could cry, like, and it's fine.
So freeing.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, that just.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so special. That's cool. A couple questions left. And this, again, ties in so nicely, but could be someone different too.
Yeah.
Who is one person that has been influential in your business and life journey?
Yeah, I thought about this, and there's been so many, including like my family and my wife and my brother, my parents and stuff. But I've always loved endurance sports and cycling and triathlon. Well, now triathlon, but cycling, and so Australia's best ever cyclist, Cadel Evans. I've always sort of like followed his career, and I've always liked the guy because he had integrity, and he sort of railed against the horrible sort of culture that was within cycling, like doping and the cheating sort of culture that was within that. And his goal in life was to be as honest, and he wore his heart on his sleeve, and honest and have the best integrity possible. And he wanted to prove that you can do all of those and be a world-class athlete in the clean way and do it right. And often, like, through the process of making the decisions in my business and stuff, I'd often like think back to, okay, like, this decision we're going to have to make, it's got like moral repercussions, and I would think back to, what would Cadell, what sort of decision would he make?
Awesome.
And like, he's just such an honest guy, like, and in this, in the day and age we live in, like, everyone sort of tries to find a mentor or something, but we're actually like really lucky in the time we live in. We have such great access to amazing people through social media and stuff like that. And like, social media and stuff can be quite detrimental at times. But there's some real positives. Like, you can be mentored by some of the best minds in the world by just following and listening to what they say and watching their actions through, because we see them so much more than we did possibly.
I never thought about it like that.
And you see it in especially if they're an honest person, you'll see the raw who they are. So you'll know when it's not contrived, and if it's raw and who they really are. So yeah, like,
that's great.
He's actually, it's pretty left field, but he's had a big impact on my life, strangely enough.
Yeah.
I just respect the guy as a person, and I often would think back, and actually just reread his biography, and it just made me smile. Like, so.
That's great. I love that, and I've never thought about social media or. Some people are definitely given a platform, and I think, yes, there's negative sides to social media, but there are positives, and there are people just using that platform for good.
Yeah, absolutely they are, and like, I mean, those platforms will be what you want to make them. So if you want to see the negative parts of it, you're going to see that.
Totally.
But if you decide in yourself that, oh no, I'm going to take some positives from this, you'll be able to. And like, I mean, not just the social media platforms, but like the availability of information, and so many more people write books and stuff these days. Like, you can have access to some great minds and some great people. It might not be personal one-on-one access, but you can sort of get an insight into who they are and like what their decision-making processes are and why they would do certain things. So like, just reading about people who have been quote-unquote successful, and even reading about the ones who have maybe taken it to the wrong, like for example Steve Jobs, and just seeing how he lived his life, and he was super successful in Apple and stuff, but there was a price to pay.
Totally.
So you can be mentored by so many more people in a sort of unconventional way.
What a brilliant thought.
You can't ask them questions. Well, I mean, you could, I suppose.
Yeah, but then also
But you can-
I'm sure, you know, through their books and their, you know, those questions are answered.
Yeah, you're right. And like, I mean, a lot of the questions you want to ask have probably been asked of them by someone in the media at some point in their life, and they've probably given an answer, whether it's honest and open or not. You can always just have a look, just do a search on YouTube.
Yeah, so true. Yeah. Man, great perspective. That's awesome. Last question I've got for you, and just want to say again, incredible conversation. Seriously, it's one of my favourites. What excites you about your future, but also the future of business in New Zealand?
Well, I feel like I've been given because I made the decision I made, and because I've exited my business, I feel like I've been given a fresh perspective, and I've been able to reflect, and so I'll go forward in my life with a different lens.
Yeah.
So that really excites me. Like, I feel like I will now actually be able to go forward and have sustainable success.
Great.
If that makes sense.
Totally.
And that's not to say that everything in the past were failures. There was plenty of successes, but at some point, I know, I just have it in me, I'll want to do something in business for myself again. But I feel like I'll be able to make that more sustainably successful and more balanced. So that really excites me. And I don't know when that will be and what that will be, but that it feels like the world is my oyster, if that makes sense. So that is really exciting.
That's so exciting.
And what excites me about the future of business in New Zealand is honestly like organisations like the Icehouse and these sorts of programs, and like New Zealand businesses have always punched above their weight in the world stage.
Totally.
And what I've realised since I've come to New Zealand is like New Zealanders, once you get to know them, like they can be really open and honest and really helpful and just want to help people. So it's quite a unique place in that it builds a sort of ecosystem of collaboration. And Icehouse and programs like this goes a long way to doing that. Once you get some like hard-nosed business people like into the Icehouse program, and then open up, and then they're so willing to open up and help you. Like everyone in my group is so willing to help each other. That really excites me. Like I mean, ecosystems like that can only be good for the future success of business in New Zealand. Like, I think we'll continue to punch above our weight as a country, and that's it. I mean, Kiwis punch above their weight in so many different aspects. It's I don't know what it is.
In sport,
it's in sport and business. I don't know what it is it's just something within the culture and the psyche here. Like, I also think it's that laid back sort of attitude, and so they're willing to give things a go, and just New Zealanders are adventurous at heart, so like they'll be adventurous in what they do and
take a risk.
They take risks.
Yeah. Totally.
It's really exciting.
Yeah. I am so genuinely excited for you. I really am. Like, just listening to the whole story and hearing your genuine heart on it, and just your passion for people, your passion for what you've learned and sharing that with others, and not just sort of parking it off to one side, but carrying it into what you're going to do. At a young age, learning all that you've learned is only going to set an incredible foundation for the future. And I just, honestly, at points got really emotional as you started talking. But I just want to thank you for sharing your story, being vulnerable. It's not easy. It's been a hard road, as you touched on, but so rewarding. So thank you for sharing your story with other business owners and leaders within the Icehouse network and beyond. And I really hope that if anyone's listening to this conversation and actually has had some triggers maybe, or gone, hey, I'm putting my hand up here, I need help in certain ways, that they do follow some of those practical tips, and they do get the help that they need. Is there any other thoughts you wanted to add to that?
No, like you were saying, like if anyone has had sort of a trigger or is recognizing some red flags, like the first step is just to act and do something. Like just have a conversation with someone about it. You can just write it down. And when it comes up again, it's very important to act. Like the sooner you act on, if you recognize any sort of triggers within or imbalances, the sooner you act on it, the sooner you can gain perspective. I feel like I've gained, like you say, a lot of perspective going through this journey, and it has been a really tough journey. Don't get me wrong, it's been really hard, but I see now that it's been really rewarding, and I wouldn't really change it. I mean, it'd be nice not to go. It's painful at times. It'd be nice not to go through that, but that's life. You're going to go through some painful periods in your life, and if you can come out the other end stronger for it, then it can only be a good thing.
Totally.
I'd just like to thank you for the time, and it's been nice chatting, and thanks to the Icehouse for creating a network and a community that's so open and willing to help each other, and I think it's quite neat. Awesome. It's really unique. I don't know too many other examples something like it.
It's an honour to be part of it and to listen to stories. And just a last note, I really do think that you just an awesome role model for your sons and for your family. I really think they're gonna one day get to an age where you can tell them the story and the shift that it meant for you and your family, and they'll really look up to you for that, and it will set them up for a win too. So
I appreciate that.
No worries. I really do mean it, and can't thank you enough for the conversation. So appreciate
that's great. The conversation's been part of my reflection journey. So this is part of it for me.
Awesome.
And I really hope that my sons will look up to me at one point and say, "Wow, Dad, you did well. You did well." And it doesn't mean I'm perfect, and I'm sure I'll still make plenty of mistakes, but I'm trying.
So amazing. Thank you so much, Warren, for being on the podcast.
It's a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan.